and I'm an organiser with the trade union SIP2, and I'm also the lead of the Cork Youth Advisory Group. This is the third webinar in the One Future, One Vision series, which has been developed by the One Movement. On the different location, either a trades council or a one group hosts a discussion topic on an area of priority for the trade union movement. Previous topics which have been covered included income, a progressive fiscal framework, and development with decency, which had an emphasis on Ross Airport and the treatment of seafarers. For those of you who aren't familiar with the One Movement, this is a network of trade unions working together at county level across sectors and workplaces, which include one Cork, one Galway, and 15 trades councils, which stretch from Donegal to Dublin and Castlebar to Cork. So we'd like to welcome you all here this evening, and thank you for taking the time to tune in this evening. And we'd particularly like to welcome Sean Mealy and Owen Neenan and their group from Cork, who I suppose have contributed to this a lot and discussed what they'd like to see coming out of this. I suppose apprenticeships have come up a lot when working with young people, and young people being drawn into bogus apprenticeships. So we feel a responsibility to show young people what a decent apprenticeship should look like, and to let them know how hard the trade union movement are working on their behalf. So just a couple of minor housekeeping points. Everyone's microphones and cameras are switched off other than the panelists, and this is just to minimise sound disruption so that we have a good quality webinar. We're encouraging plenty of participation, and we hope that you'll have questions for our panelists. So there should be a box on the lower right hand side of your screen where you can submit questions. And if you could just submit them directly to myself, Teresa Butler, I can then pass them on to the panelists after they've all spoken. We intend to finish this within 1 hour, so we'll do our best to keep it to that. And in the event that your question isn't answered, we'll try to get it answered for you after this and get those answers sent out. So I'll just give you a brief introduction to our panelists. So we'd like to thank them all for taking the time this evening to be here with us and to impart their knowledge on apprenticeships. So first of all, Patricia is the General Secretary of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. She is a former Vice President of my union SIP2 and also served as one of 2 Vice Presidents of Congress. She was a full-time official with SIP2 for over 25 years and was the first woman to serve as a national officer of our union when she was appointed Vice President in May 2010. She has represented workers in all areas of the economy in both the public and private sectors, and she was a lead negotiator in both the Croke Park and the Haddington Road agreements. Patricia played a leading role in the Irish ferries dispute and in subsequent negotiations that saw an overhaul of employment law and the establishment of the National Employment Rights Authority. Patricia currently serves on the boards of the Dublin Airport Authority, the DAA, and is on the Apprenticeship Council and the Court Services Board. So we'd ask Patricia just to speak to us now about the importance of apprenticeships and the role of trade unions that trade unions have in improving them. I think you're just on.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you to everybody in One Cork for arranging this important seminar. And I'm glad to be able to make a short contribution. For a long number of years, I better say hello to Sean Mealy because I know him for a long number of years, so I'm glad that he's at the meeting as well. We've had in the trade union movement a long history with the promotion of apprenticeships, and I think for very good reason. Apprenticeship is a different form of education, as it is work and classroom based, running alongside one another. So it's dual learning. So from the point of view of the value of apprenticeship, I just want to maybe talk about that. And I know Aiden from the education side will go into this in more detail, but from the point of view of apprenticeship as a route. So from my perspective, and I have been with the Apprenticeship Council, sitting on that Apprenticeship Council for about the last 5 or 6 years. And the reason that Apprenticeship Council was set up because from our point of view as a trade union organisation, we felt that apprenticeships were undervalued. We also felt that they could be damaged by virtue of no attention being paid to them in any real way within the education system. And most young people were being channeled through out of leaving certificate into third level, and the attrition rate in third level at the first year is actually quite high. And some of the reasons for that obviously is that students go to third level and then establish that they're not actually suited to that way of study, and that some other way might very well be more appropriate for them. The other piece is that the work and the amount of, I suppose, exposure that students have to apprenticeship and the openings it can offer for people for their future is very low. Within the school system, from our point of view, there is a lot of feedback that career guidance people, counsellors and so on in school haven't really bought into this whole notion of apprenticeship being an alternative educational route. So from our perspective, if you look across Europe, if you look at countries like Germany, Finland, they are completely embedded and wedded to the idea of apprenticeship as a really good route for educational achievement. So the first thing to say is this in work and in classroom type education system, from the point of view of value, you can pick a trade in the construction sector, or indeed outside of the construction sector. The Apprenticeship Council has been developing apprenticeships in other ways, in other sectors, accommodation and food, in retail, in manufacturing. There have been serious numbers of apprenticeships. Now, they are not actually, there's some differences in how they are set up and so on, but they have the basic principles of in work and on the job and classroom training. Those two principles are very clear on that. Now, from the point of view of building skills, I can tell you that on the construction, and you'll be talking about the trades like electrician, like carpenter, like plasterer, and various of like painters and so on. All of those trades are part of the offering within the construction sector. The in-house and in-classroom training is provided by SOLAS and overseen by them in the main. It could also be provided in some of the IoTs. And there are some issues arising with them, which we are operating on behalf of the affiliate unions. We're sort of lobbying with government to get changes. There was a new Department of Higher Education established when this new government came in. They are now focusing very much on the development of apprenticeships. We have to be very careful working with them that they don't dismantle the good pieces of the apprenticeship schemes while they try to rebuild and bring about a better, I suppose, offering in terms of apprenticeship. But if you look at it on the in-work and on-the-job training alongside the classroom, people are getting paid. Now, they're getting paid an apprenticeship rate of pay, which sometimes people feel is lower, but by and large, it is mixed in. People get paid while they're in the classroom as well. There is some funding from the government as well to employers now to employ apprentices. But when you come to, say, the largest number of phases is 6 phases, for instance, in the electrical apprenticeship, and when you come to that piece of having completed your 6 phases, I can tell you that all of the evidence is that the apprenticeships that are concluded in Ireland are regarded as world class. And that has been, I mean, Irish apprentices have competed over the years in various international competitions, and Ireland have come out really in top class in terms of the level of skills, the level of competency, and how employers view them in terms of those two things, because employers want to see people working with them that have the ability, have the interest in gaining the skill, have the ability and the competencies to deliver that skill, and they then want to have confidence that the person they are going to take on and that they have actually sponsored to train have applied themselves and have achieved this qualification. When you achieve that qualification, then that opens up other trajectories for your education progression. So for instance, if you become an apprentice, then you are entitled to progress to the other layers of the education system into third level, and you will already probably be in third level when you're doing your training, because you'll be assigned probably to one of the IoTs, but you can go and do the technician's qualification, you can do engineering, you can do whatever piece. If you're in the construction area that you want to take on, there is actually, the world is your oyster. There is nothing stopping you doing that. So my message on that one is, if you choose to do an apprenticeship, either having left school at your leaving cert or before, but certainly having concluded your junior cert, if you decide to take up an apprenticeship, you are not denying yourself the opportunity to go through third level. You're not making yourself or putting yourself into a slot, which means that you won't be, I suppose, mirroring what some of your other colleagues in school would be doing in terms of going to third level and getting a degree. Because very often when people come out with a degree from third level, they find it somewhat difficult to bed into the workforce. An apprentice who has done all their phases comes out with a top class qualification, and actually in today's world, where, for instance, in construction, they are crying out for well-qualified people to join the workforce because they don't have enough of them. A lot of people left these shores during the last depression. A lot of them were construction workers. The construction industry fell very badly in terms of employment numbers. So there is a huge scarcity, and so there is quite a strong demand for apprentices. So in encouraging yourself to think about options other than being pushed through a third level or otherwise education track, I think that the people should really strongly look at the apprenticeship, and that goes for girls and boys. There's a very small number of girls in the system in school who take up apprenticeships. It's increasing a little bit because there are apprenticeships, as I have said, being developed in some layers of the banking, in some layers of ICT, in accommodation and food, and so on. But still, the level of take-up from females is quite low. That is something that is replicated in other countries as well, but it's not as bad as in Ireland. The other piece that in the movement we are making sure is that apprentices are registered, because there is some level of attack, I would say, in industries in terms of people who are being accepted by employers as knowing how to do a particular trade or job and actually not being registered and not actually having the qualifications to do it. And there have been, some of you might remember controversies about building schools and so on, where the schools nearly fell down and they all had to be, parts of them had to be rebuilt and all. That was all employers trying to do work on the cheap and not employing people who are properly qualified to do the job. So in terms even overall in our economy, we need a big skilled workforce. And I made the point to Barry when I was speaking yesterday to him about this, that there is no reason, and actually, believe it or not, I had a conversation with some key people in the Department of Education yesterday afternoon about this. There should be no person in Ireland, no young person, whatever age group, who is declared as unskilled. There is no reason for it. There are openings and opportunities for everybody to progress with their education skills. And apprenticeship is a really good route to follow that improvement and to gain a really recognised skill. It's a recognised qualification. It can stand up anywhere in the world, and anybody who gets that has a really valuable piece in their armoury to face their life into the future. The earnings are quite good, actually, and in the trade union movement, in the construction sector, we have worked really hard to make sure that there is a standard of wage that people can achieve in all of these various different trades. So I would say the building industry is changing. It's changing in its practices. It's changing in terms of how we build buildings, how we build houses, but it looks as if there will never be there will never be no need for people who are electricians, or people who are carpenters, or people who are plasterers, or people who are painters, because all of those are required skills no matter what building you're putting up. But there are opportunities in the other new ways of construction, all to do with, for instance, the technology, the new technology about how of construction and how you build particular types of buildings and so on. All that's going on, and I'm sure Aiden will talk with that. So, from my point of view, I would say the trade union movement has been very, very strongly associated with the development of apprenticeships. We see apprenticeships as a key and not an alternative. They are equally as good. They are equally on a par with others who go through IOTs for their education and so on. They are a different model of delivering education, but they are certainly not a lesser, and we have to find a way to communicate that, because we're not doing that well. The education system is not doing that well, and I think we're going to sort of build up our efforts in attempting to get across, mainly to young people, but it's not closed off. At any age somebody can apply to become an apprentice and can change their career trajectory, and that they can achieve a skill. And so my, I suppose, parting shot to you would be, everybody should consider, if for instance, they have considered all of the third level options and they don't see something that jumps off the page to them that would be of interest to them, but they are very good with their hands, they have lots of other skills that they want to, or they have an interest in other areas that are not directly covered off in the third level, I would seriously suggest that the apprenticeship model you should give that some consideration, and we will be working with the government Department of Higher Education to ensure that we can improve at every juncture the apprenticeship schemes that are offered to people when they come to that point in their life. Thanks very much, Teresa.
Very much for that, Patricia. As you said, it's so very important for apprenticeships to be seen and valued as a quality avenue to education. And it's great to hear what the trade union movement are doing to, I suppose, enhance the conditions of apprenticeships, to ensure there's proper registration there, not just for safety, but I suppose for the apprentices themselves. So as we've talked about, they don't fall into bogus apprenticeships, that they are protected as well. And that the trade union movement then continue to fight for workers right into their career as they develop on. So thanks very much for that, Patricia. Our next panelist this evening is Aiden Kenny. So Aiden started his working life as an apprentice plasterer and was a member of OPATSI, our plasterers union. As part of his apprenticeship, he studied in Bolton Street, which I believe is now DIT. When he qualified, he continued to engage in education through evening classes. He eventually went on to obtain a degree, a master's and a doctorate of education. He has taught in DIT and Trinity College Dublin. He is currently on secondment to the Teachers Union of Ireland as their Assistant General Secretary. He also manages several EU Erasmus Plus projects and is a member of the European Alliance for Apprenticeships, and is also a member of the Kildare Trades Council. To us this evening about apprenticeships as a quality career path and the educational aspect of apprenticeships.
Thanks, Teresa. And I'd like to thank One Cork for this initiative. It's an excellent initiative, and Fiona for assisting and organising it. And also congratulate all concerned for getting the leader of the trade union movement to participate in this event, because it's very hard to get the General Secretary a big two. So well done. That was an achievement. And Patricia is a strong voice for apprenticeship, and it's a voice that we welcome, and we welcome that support throughout the many years that Patricia has advocated for apprenticeship. Yeah, when I was asked, I'm on the Kildare Trades Council, and at that meeting, I don't know whether Fiona ambushed me or gave me an invitation to speak at this event. But I was thinking about it, and apprenticeship, I came from apprenticeship, and I was just looking through some records that I have. So I have a logbook. This is a ANCO logbook, and when you started as an apprentice back in my time, which is a long time ago, 1985, you had a national agency called ANCO in place. So you had to register with ANCO to become an apprentice. You had to have, and this is very important with our apprenticeship system, you had to have employment, and then you had to register to become an apprentice. And that's a unique thing in a European context, because apprenticeship in Ireland is underpinned by law, by legislation. Apprentices have absolute rights under that law and legislation. Where in other European countries, apprenticeship is something similar to traineeships, and it's a different thing. It's a different thing. But as Patricia mentioned, there is the German model, which is a unique model, the dual system. And that's a very strong, quality-driven apprenticeship model. But our model, I would say, and from looking at the different systems in Europe, our model is up there with the best. So the designated trade areas, and some call them the pre-2016 trades, because in 2015 there was a review of apprenticeship, and new apprentices, new types of apprentices could be developed after 2016. So you have apprenticeships now that are in engineering, construction, and now you've also got new apprentices in taxation, pharmaceutical, and so forth. So there's many opportunities for apprentices in a variety of different areas. Apprenticeship Changes, the curriculum that you'll study as an apprentice is a national curriculum. That national curriculum, we have advice from industry, from trade unions, from experts in developing that national curriculum. The national curriculum gives our apprentices a level 6 higher qualification on our framework. And that qualification is recognised throughout Europe. It's recognised in Australia, America, and so forth. So it's a very valuable qualification. And that qualification also gives you access to other programs and courses if you choose. So you can go on and do, you can do another level 6 in a PLC, Further Education College. You can go to an Institute of Technology or a technological university. At the moment, there's only one in Ireland, and that's the Technological University Dublin. And you can do a level 7 or a level 8 degree program. So your qualification has currency and value. It's a quality award, and the Quality Qualifications Ireland, which is our national qualifications authority, they provide the award. So it has national currency, which is important. I would say, looking at apprenticeship and looking at how we engage as a country in apprenticeship, the Education and Training Boards provide training at phase 2. And then the Institutes of Technology and the Technological University Dublin provide education and training at phases 4 and 6. And you get paid while you learn. The European Commission says it's earn while you learn. And that's true, because you get paid for off the job and you get paid for on the job. There's different rates depending on the area that you're in. The average for phase 2 is around €200 a week. And then that goes up to around €450 for phase 6. So it's a good amount of money, pay, while you're both studying and working. So you're learning new skills in the workplace, and you're also in a training centre or an education centre. The opportunities that are there for apprentices. Some employers would say, have you got a driving license and have you got a passport? Because, and these are the bigger employers like Shore, Engineering, because they see their apprentices not as just employees in Ireland, but as workers that will get opportunities to work abroad. And their sites, I was on some of their pharmaceutical sites, they don't look like building sites. They look like clean rooms in a computer laboratory. I mean, when I was working on site, health and safety was minimal. Now, on site, health and safety is a legal requirement. So the conditions on sites now are second to none. The other options you have is we have the national skills competition and we have the world skills competition. And as an apprentice, you can enter these competitions and you can compete with the best in your region, the best nationally, and the best internationally. The World Skills competition was previously held in Russia, and several million people came to see the event. And we had a team over there. I think there was 20 apprentices that competed. Maybe 21. But we done extremely well, and that option is there for apprentices. There's also the European Commission Erasmus Pro scheme, which allows for funding for an apprentice to work in a different company in Europe for 3 months. So you could work in some of the large manufacturing companies, construction companies in another European country, learn their culture, learn their language, and it's paid for through the European Commission Erasmus Pro scheme, which is an excellent initiative and brings apprenticeship up to the same level as degree programs with their Erasmus program, where they can go away for 1 semester. So it's a unique scheme that's only started in the last 2 years. And the European Commission has set up the European Alliance for Apprenticeship and the European Apprenticeship Network for young apprentices to network across Europe and to learn the different ways apprenticeship systems operate in different countries. So the option in terms of work and employability is huge. Your apprenticeship qualification is a license to work and a license to travel. And most young apprentices, well, most apprentices I knew when we were young, we all traveled at different stages in our lives. So it's an excellent quality career path option. And I think, as Patricia's at the saying, it's not that you're not going to higher education. You are. By taking an apprenticeship, you will train in an education and training board, and then you will go to higher education to an institute of technology. So you've already started in higher education. And if you choose to go on, you can go on and do whatever you want in terms of studying for degrees in engineering, architecture, pharmaceuticals. Your training as an apprentice, the unique combination of practical skills and theoretical knowledge is something that will stand to you throughout the rest of your working life. So I won't hold you much longer than that, and I'm open to questions at the end. But I would highly recommend apprenticeship as a quality career path and as something that will stand to the people that qualify for the rest of their life. They may not stay in the trade that they've qualified to be in, but the training that they receive in terms of how to apply knowledge to theory is unique. The problem-solving skills are unique. And when I studied in academia with other colleagues who didn't and hadn't had the experience of gone through an apprenticeship, I noticed there is a difference in how we go about applying our knowledge and our problem-solving skills towards those who just chose an academic route. We rely on our experience, we rely on our know-how, we rely on our previous knowledge, and we also learn from our mistakes. And that's why the practical component of apprenticeship is extremely important. And just by the way, just before I leave, the Dublin Institute of Technology and Bolton Street came from the artisan movement back in 18, I think it was 87. The School of Construction was established, and that was established by workers at the time who were artisans, who were the tradespeople of the time. So it has a long history and tradition in DIT and on Bolton Street, which is now the first technological university in the country. So apprenticeship has a proud heritage in Ireland, and it is a quality route for any young person to consider in terms of their career path. So thank you, Chair. Thank you.
It was great to get, I suppose, some perspective on the educational aspect of apprenticeships and to hear the opportunities that they open up for people. So that was fantastic. Thanks very much. So our next panelist this evening, Conor Mee. Conor is a third-year apprentice from Cork, serving his time as a mechanical, automotive and maintenance fitter, and is also a member of the trade union Connect. So thanks very much to Conor, who's going to speak to us about his experience as an apprentice and the importance of being a member of a trade union.
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. Well, I suppose I'll just start off on how I got into the apprenticeship. So in school, I kind of knew that I didn't want to go to college, and that I always knew that I was a bit more of a practical learner, doing engineering in school and construction. So then when it came to picking out the CAO form and picking what you want to do in college, I didn't really have any interest in it, but the career guidance said that you pick a college course, like, and whatever you get, like, you know, take it, like, and I was kind of, you know, so I kind of had to rely on myself. And I suppose my family, my father and my brother are both in trades as well, so I have to rely on them to help me to get into a position to find a trade that I liked and find an apprenticeship, basically. So I started off, and I just went online, and I looked around the place, and went on to apprenticeships.ie, which is I found very good for learning and, you know, knowing what you needed for interviews and aptitude tests and for the bigger companies. So then I suppose I finished Leaving Cert in June 2018, and I got my apprenticeship in October. So I got a mechanical, automotive and maintenance fitting apprenticeship based out of Cork. So I'm from Cork originally, so it's handy that I don't have to travel far. So then I suppose after a few weeks we got a letter from Solis to say that we would have to go into Solis Centre to do an induction, and that's where you get your logbook, and they tell you about the 6 phases of the 3 on the job, 3 off the job, and just basically your induction into apprenticeship. So then after a while you go back out on site and you basically learn the basics of your trade. And then I think it was a 6-month waiting period from your start date with your employer before you get called for phase 2. And so 6 months passed, and not, I'd say, I don't know, a couple of weeks after six months, I got called for phase 2 down in Tralee, which was a 6-month period. So it would have been my first time away from home, and so it was different. I suppose it wasn't what I was expecting, because you think, like, you would hear a lot of people doing apprenticeships and say that a lot of it is mixed, but I found it was very more practical in the Sulla Centre, which is great for me because I'm a practical learner. Like, that's how I learn, like, by seeing and by doing it. And then you just had all your different modules, and it was good in the sense that you were probably doing, I suppose, nearly 4 days of practical learning, and then you'd have a day of theory learning, which would just recap on what you learned practically. So really, it's a good system that way. So then you obviously have exams, like, but I think I had 12 exams in total for that phase, and 9 of them were practical. So it's no bother to you, like. And the 3 theory exams, 1 or 2 test type exams, which were manageable, like they weren't hard or anything, like. And then you had 1 drawing exam for my particular trade, and all doable, like, and there'll be no bother to anyone that needs it, like. Also, the Sulla centres, if you have any learning disabilities or anything, they are very good for helping you. And they have no bother once you say to your instructor within the first 2 weeks, like, they'll ask you anyway. And they will put in sports for you if you did have any learning disabilities, which is very helpful, I find. So I suppose that I finished down in Tralee last November, so I'm a year now in phase 3. So I'll be waiting to get called for phase 4, which is in IT, for a 2-month period. And that, as far as I know, that is obviously a bit more theory based, but you still have your practical elements, which I suppose for anyone like myself, practical learning while still in the IT will help you with whatever theory you have to do. So I suppose that is the main reason why I went into the apprenticeship, because of all the practical learning. And I would say to anyone thinking about an apprenticeship, I would say definitely do it, because they're invaluable in my eyes. Because I suppose if you've done your 4 years and then a few years down the line you want to do, like in my case, it would be a mechanical engineering course down the line, like, it's the option is there for you, like. And I find anyway that if you've done it practically, like, it's going to help you miles for your engineering course, which I suppose you wouldn't have if you went straight from school into college. You wouldn't have that experience of being on site, knowing the workings of everything, and going into a college course not knowing a thing, like, So I think that's a good reason to pick an apprenticeship. And definitely, if your school, or if you're out of school a few years even, and you don't have the resources to look it up, just, I suppose, you could look at the union websites and the apprenticeships.ie, and there's loads of information there. And I suppose, especially if you're in school, because I know my personal experience anyway, the schools, I don't think they push it enough. Well, not push it, but I suppose advertise it enough, yeah. Because like it was always get the college course, put in the college course. They didn't have much time for people that wanted to do apprenticeships, which I found, was shocking. Like, because I suppose, like, if you want to do an apprenticeship, like, they shouldn't be nudging it towards a college course if that's not what you want to do. But hopefully in the next few years, over time, that schools will start copping on and seeing that people will actually want to do apprenticeships. Like, because I know personally from my year, I had a small class. There was only about 50 of us, and I think about 12 of us went into apprenticeships, and it was all of our own doing, because the school didn't really. They would help you a small bit, but not as much as they would help you if you were to go to college. But I think, yeah. And then when I started as well, the people I work with started talking to me about unions. I suppose they just explained that the union is always there for you if you need help or if you need advice on anything in your workplace. And it's just there for you to, I suppose, have someone to turn to if you need them. And the union I'm with, Connect, I suppose there's no, it's free for apprentices. So, and I'm not too sure about other unions, but they might have something similar. So really, there's no reason for you not to join them, because they're there to help you, like, and they're just an extra bit of support for you through your apprenticeship. So yeah, I think that's about much as I can give on my experience. So yeah, thanks, Teresa.
Okay. Fantastic, Connor. Thanks so much. It's great to hear a real experience from an apprenticeship, and for those, I suppose, watching who are considering how you got into it and your experience in it, and the fact that you're a member of a trade union and how it's been important to you. I suppose what you talked about linked back into what Patricia and Aiden spoke about how when you were in school and you wanted to do an apprenticeship, it was just pushed aside and it wasn't recognised as a quality career path. So hopefully, as you said, that'll change over time. So thanks a million for that, Connor. And our next panelist is another apprentice from Cork, Tom Dobbin. He is carrying out his apprenticeship at the moment in electrical instrumentation and is also a member of the trade union Connect. Thanks a million, Tom.
Thanks, Teresa. Hope you can hear me there now. So I'll start off there. I had a different kind of route to Connor there. Started, like, when I finished school, it was back in 2012, and there was very little apprenticeships on offer at the time, I suppose, because it was still kind of in recession. So at the time, I tried like the ESB now, and I tried the big kind of companies that were advertising for apprenticeships, but didn't get anything offered anyway. So I decided to go to college there in that year, September of that year, and I did electrical engineering. Like, I was reasonably okay at school. Like, I was never brightest, I suppose. Like, but I was reasonably good. So I said I'd give college a go. I kind of knew myself, alright. I didn't 100% want to do college. Like, I did want to do an apprenticeship, but same as Connor there now, like, guidance counsellors and everyone in school, it was never really an option, especially back then. I think it was never an option really. So I did college for 2 years. I did electrical engineering in CIT. First year was fine. It was okay. Like, I got through it. Did a good bit of study, alright. But the second year in, it's when I really hit it right, because in that course, qualified electricians were admitted into that course in the second year, and I suppose it was through no fault of the lecturers or anyone, but the lecturers did kind of speed up to facilitate the electricians, like, and people from the CAO or just after finishing college or just after finishing school. Kind of like a lot of us, kind of got left behind a small bit. Like, they were going way too fast for us. And sure, I never even stood foot in the site, so a lot of the stuff there was just going right over my head. So I dropped out after year 2, and that was around 2014, I'd say. And so I started looking for an apprenticeship. So I got one after about a year, I'd say, of searching. I was kind of picky enough, I suppose, where I was going to get an apprenticeship, because I was going to spend 4 years of it, so I wanted to get the best one possible. So I tried ESB, the Gas Networks Ireland, all these places. I eventually got one in a large engineering firm there in Cork, so I was happy enough for that. So I was 22 when I started my apprenticeship, and the first couple of years were, first year anyway, you're doing the fairly mundane work, like, you're picking up cable ties, or you're just shadowing a fella for a while, like, so can be a bit, a lot of people might kind of grow bored of it, like, but all I could say to them is, stick at it, like, when you're a year at it, like, they'll start, giving you a bit more responsibility, a bit more praise, I suppose. Like, a lot of fellas can, lose interest after a while and just drop out of it or try to do something else. I just say, yeah, stick at it for a while, and especially then when you start going to FOS and going through the phases, you learn a load. Like, when I went to phase 2 there, that was nearly my most beneficial phase, because that was the most hands-on practical phase. You do your safety, your fuse or your distribution board wiring and all that, like, and when you come back on site, then you're definitely a lot more appreciated, I suppose. So after that, alright, like, phase 2 was very doable. Like, if you apply yourself, you should have no problem with it. Especially, I can't speak for all trades, but definitely my trade anyway. If you apply yourself, you'll get through, not a bother. Phase 4 and phase 6, when we go to Carlow IT for our phases, for the electrical instrumentation phase, it does get a lot harder. You are in Institute of Technology, like, so maybe people who are in phase 2, they might kind of expect it to be the same, with same kind of setup and the same kind of level of difficulty, but I really couldn't stress enough now that it isn't, like, there's a lot of people now that did find phase 4 and phase 6 very hard. You really have to apply yourself, like, you can go up there and have a good time and have a laugh and all that, but you're not going to pass it if you're just doing that, for the whole time, like, so I suppose you really have to apply yourself up there. But I qualified there now last year, and delighted, like, it's definitely the best choice I've made in a long while anyway, because just in terms of responsibility there now on the site I'm working at, the money is very good, couldn't complain about that. So yeah, I couldn't fault it really. Where the Connect Trade Union, the union I'm part of there now, where that came to play was when actually not just me, there was about 20 of us with the company working with. We had a bit of trouble with pay, so, like, the union rate of pay, like, for first, second, third, fourth, that wasn't being adhered to by our company. I won't name them now, obviously, like, but so when we were in actually third year, we hadn't yet gone to phase 4, because there's a big long backlog, like, so it's nothing you can do about that. But our company was still paying us secondary rate of pay, and their kind of rule was you had to complete phase 4 before you get the third year pay, like. So we were in third year still getting secondary pay, and we were kind of growing weary, because we were nearly in our fourth year of work with a company, and still getting second year pay. It was just because the way the backlog and all that, no fault of Solus or our company, but we were the ones losing out in the end. So a few of us got on to the trade union, had meetings with them, we all signed up as well, and it did take a couple of months back and forth, but in the end, over 20 lads there, and 20 lads in the same boat as me, in the same kind of phase as me. We got our deserved rate of pay, and we got back pay as well. So like now our company is like, I'm not too sure why they weren't paying us. I suppose it would save a few pounds, but they like, you know, it's a thing now where they have to pay you by your year, not by what phase you're in. So couldn't thank the union enough, the Connect union down in Cork enough anyway for that. So that was my experience with him anyway. So yeah, if you have any questions there, I'll be happy to answer them.
Tom, thanks very much for that. And it's great, I suppose, to have a practical example of how the trade union has helped you and showing the importance of being a member of a trade union. So thanks a million for that contribution. So our final panelist of the night is Barry Murphy, and Barry is Deputy General Secretary of OPATSI, the Operative Plasterers and Allied Trade Society of Ireland, or better known as the Plasterers Union of Ireland. He is a member of the Strategic Policy Committee for Housing in Cork City Council. He's President of the Council of Trade Unions and is also a member of the One Cork Steering Committee. So thanks very much for joining us this evening, Barry.
Hi everyone, thanks Teresa. Look, I'd just like to thank everyone that contributed tonight. I know we're running a small bit over, so I'll just try and wrap it up as fast as I can. Look, I have to agree, apprenticeships are a fantastic way of somebody, I suppose, you know, having a life path that will do it for the whole of life and will allow them to get on and live a meaningful life, support their, you know, themselves and their families with decent rates of pay and decent prospects. But I want to discuss one of the, you know, some of the drawbacks to it in Ireland, unfortunately, at the moment. The issue about going onto a building site and having your trade recognised, you know, is an issue that the trade union movement are working on very hard at the moment. We're working with the department to try and get a recognition of your skills, so that when you go onto a building site as a plasterer, a plumber, an electrician, that you actually have to have your qualifications. Because this, you know, a house is probably the most expensive thing anybody will ever buy in their lifetime. And, you know, you're buying something and you want to be sure that the people that worked on that from a health and safety point of view, along with everything else, are actually qualified to do that job, you know, so that when you go to bed at night, you can feel safe and assured that it's a quality build, not only to look at, but to sleep in at night with your family. And I know the trade union movement have been working constantly with the department to try and get this recognised. So therefore, anybody with a qualification that registers with SOLAS will also have opportunities to get work in the public sector. You're not allowed to work in the public sector without the proper qualifications. And these are decent jobs. So I have a big problem with what we would call unregistered apprenticeships, i.e., you know, young people that go into apprenticeships because they know somebody, they know an employer, and they're being constantly told, you know, you don't need to register with SOLAS, you just work away with me, and I'll give you a letter at the end of your 4 years saying you're qualified. Well, actually, after the 4 years, you've actually wasted 4 years. Because, as Aiden said earlier, if you want to travel, if you want a job in the public sector, these are all closed off to you, because you actually have nothing after the 4 years. And also what you'll find is a lot of these apprenticeships that people pick up, you know, through their dad or through their mom or through their brother or sister or whatever. They're also very specialized subcontractors. So while you will become quite proficient in one aspect of the trade, probably, you won't get the broader knowledge that will allow you to go on and progress, not only as a tradesperson, but, you know, go on and further your education. And, you know, it's not about knowing how to do something. It's also about knowing why you do it, you know, and what's the thinking that goes behind that. And that helps you develop, and it also helps your employer. So therefore, you're a commodity that any decent employer will want. He'll want somebody that he can leave on the job and be assured that when he comes back at the end of the day, you know, he has a quality product. So that actually enhances your ability to earn, you know, decent money. So a recognition of qualifications on the sites is absolutely vital to all the trades going forward, because we need parents to see the value. And we're trying hard to get into second level schools at the moment so that we can go and address the pupils, because a lot of them, through their career guidance leaders, aren't being made aware of the pitfalls, you know, associated with non-recognised apprenticeships. Now, some of the young people that are here tonight were very interested in the rates of pay, which I can understand. And for craftspeople at the moment, it goes from €20 to €22.50, depending on which craft, you know, qualified. And a first year apprentice gets 33%, a second year apprentice gets 50%, a third year apprentice gets 75%, and a fourth year apprentice will get 90% of that rate. So that's quite substantial earning for a young person. I mean, it's great. Some people won't go on to college, but if you jump into a McDonald's or whatever and you think it's great, you're stuck on that, whatever minimum or just above minimum pay for the rest of your life. But as an apprentice, you have an opportunity to go on, and the rates of pay progress, and us in the trade union movements are always working to enhance those rates of pay. And also, as a properly qualified and properly employed tradesperson, you have sick pay, you have death and benefits, you have rights to holidays, and these are all very important, especially sick pay with what we're going through at the moment. So, look, I don't want to waffle on too long, but we're also working very hard at local and at national level, because the government is the biggest consumer of building products in the country, be it social housing, schools, colleges, hospitals, and we're pushing hard that in the future all contracts awarded by the government not only will have to ensure that everyone has the proper qualification on it, but that each contract would have a percentage of the workforce as apprentices. It's common practice in the UK. In Norway, you need between 3 and 5% of the workforce as apprentices on procurement contracts over a certain level. So look, just to wrap up, I'd like to thank everyone that took part tonight, especially the young people. It's apprentices, you know, it's a new experience for them to talk in front of people. I'd like to thank Patricia. It's hard to get Patricia for giving up her valuable time. And I'd like to thank Fiona for helping us host this, and Teresa for moderating it. Great stuff again. So look, if there are any questions, just fire away. And if we can't get to them tonight, I'm sure we get back to you in the near future. So thanks for listening. Good night.
Thanks very much for that, Barry. That's fantastic. We know you're doing a lot of work on the ground with apprenticeships, and you came to the event we had in Knocknaheeny last year and talked to the young people about what a quality apprenticeship should look like. So I know we're at the 8 o'clock mark, but we did start a few minutes past 8, so we don't want to keep people too long, but we do want to try and get to even just a few questions. So what I might do is just pose the questions directly to panelists rather than asking you to all comment on them. So I suppose I would have a comment rather than a question, but it just was from Frank Jones. He said, SIP2 negotiated adult apprenticeships for some GOs in Oral-B and Newbridge. These union members held their pay rates while undergoing their apprenticeship. There should be more of this, and well done to everyone for organising this webinar. So that's a good positive comment. And I suppose just questions then. So I might kind of double up questions and give them to panelists just to save on time and try and get them answered. So I suppose for yourself, Aiden, if you wouldn't mind answering, the first one here is there any science or teaching apprenticeships? And just a second one for you is, what level of education is required in order to begin an apprenticeship?
Yeah, thanks. At the moment, there's no teaching apprenticeship, well, not in Ireland. Although you do have to do a placement to become a teacher, but it's not an apprenticeship model. In other countries, there is a type of apprenticeship model for the teaching profession. So I don't see why it couldn't be used, because the apprenticeship model itself, and it's used in France for, say, engineering, you can do, or architecture, you can become an apprentice. You don't have to go to college. so you can choose an apprenticeship route to get that degree qualification. And it's something I think could be considered for other professions as well. Your minimum qualification to become an apprentice is 5 passes. But I from what I've heard and from statistics I'm looking at the moment, most apprentices now have a leaving cert. So, but it's not the requirement, but most are coming in with a leaving cert at the moment.
Okay, that's fantastic, Aidan. Thanks very much. And so for Patricia, I just have 2 questions for you, if you wouldn't mind. One of them is, what role do you think there is for the trade union and students' union movement in ensuring apprentices have a say in the development of apprenticeship education here in Ireland? And just the second one is, in terms of stability in apprenticeship training, has it been a good thing to have had ANCO, FOSS, CERT all replaced without any clear strategy at the time? And are we any clearer now to an overall and lasting strategy, particularly in relation to electrical, mechanical and construction apprenticeships?
Okay, thank you, Teresa. So I'll answer the second one first, if I might. I think that all of those events that you've just, that the questioner has set down there, didn't do the body of apprenticeship training in terms of the outturn of apprenticeship training any good. And it certainly demonstrated a lack of joined up vision in terms of how apprenticeship training should be delivered. Now, there is, I think, with the development of a higher education department, because very often, I think that apprenticeships suffered as a result of this. The Department of Education were heavily engaged in primary education and second level education, to a degree third level, but they didn't have the same level of interest in developing it. This higher education department is showing signs now of wanting to develop a joined up approach to third level education, which would include apprenticeship and the delivery of apprenticeship on a level par. That is a very positive sign from our point of view, and it is up to the trade union movement as the voice of workers who may firstly, as one of the contributors there, Frank Jones, has said, might through an adult apprenticeship want to take up, but also the voice of those apprentices who will become involved in apprenticeship schemes. I think that the new department, we've just been through a public consultation process. Lots of questions were raised. They're in a discussion. We are part, on behalf of the trade union movement, we are currently, as we speak, part of that dialogue to try and improve the current scenario. So the questioner is right. Those stop-starts, changes of organisation, restructuring and so on, didn't do the overall message a lot of good. But I'm hoping that we will now have an opportunity to change that. Could I just, as an aside, Chair, just take the opportunity to say to you, no matter how much people like myself, and I know Aiden will understand and Barry when I say this, no matter how much we go and talk at people about this, you couldn't get a better message across than the 2 contributors we've had, Tom and Conor, in relation to. I thought they were absolutely really put the message across, because nobody understands it better than those who are actually doing it in a moment in time. And they really put forward the case, but in a very, I thought, open and factual way. They were giving the good and the bad, and that is a really strong way to relate to others in terms of a personal experience. To deal with the other question, the role for the trade union student in ensuring apprentices, well, believe it or not, there is now, the issue is being considered, and the meeting I was at yesterday evening with senior people from the Department of Higher Education, this issue about apprentice voice came through. And my judgment is that any future structure, the overall structure that will manage apprentices into the future, will have an apprenticeship voice and an apprentice voice. And I think that that is really, really important. In the public consultation, there was a high level of throughput from apprentices into that consultation to tell the bureaucrats how they felt about apprenticeships, which was a really good thing. The majority of them came, I have to say, from the construction apprentices, but there were others from some of the other apprenticeships that are out there. But I think that I could say with certainty that the new structure, the governance structure into the future, will include an apprentice voice, and rightly so.
Thanks very much for that, Patricia. Just the last two questions now are for Barry, if you wouldn't mind, Barry. So where do I go if I decide I would like to begin an apprenticeship, and how do I know if an apprenticeship is legitimate?
Sorry, Teresa, the second part you kind of broke up there.
Oh, sorry, the second one was, how do I know if an apprenticeship is legitimate?
Well, look, I'll deal with the first part. The onus here in Ireland is that you go and you get an employer first. So young people, look, there's plenty of good employers out there. You should do your research and try and contact maybe people that have served their time there before as apprentices. And if you're lucky enough to be offered a position, you have to ensure, it's up to yourself to ensure that the apprentice, that your apprenticeship is registered with SOLAS. That is how you will verify that it's a bona fide apprenticeship, and that will be of value to you after your 4 years. I cannot stress enough the importance of ensuring that regardless, and I know they're young people and they might be a bit apprehensive about speaking up, or even speaking up at home and saying, look, my employer isn't registering me, what will I do? It's vital that instead of wasting those valuable years, that you ensure you speak up, you speak to your employer, you contact SOLAS and tell them you want to be registered, and that, you know, that people have this conversation around the dinner table as well. You know, have the conversation with your parents, tell them what your concerns are. And if anybody out there wants to contact any trade union movement, you can contact us through the One Movement, or contact myself or Aiden or any official. You know, we will give you all the information that's needed. And, you know, by being in the trade union, we will not put you wrong, and we'll ensure that, you know, everything is above board and that you'll have a career and a future to look forward to.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Barry. So I suppose we'll draw this to a close, because we've just hit about the hour mark there. So we'll stick to our promise of not keeping people. We know how people are a bit burnt out from these Zoom and Microsoft Teams meetings, but we'd like to really thank the panelists who gave of their valuable time this evening to come and speak to us. And a particular thank you to Tom and to Connor. As Patricia said, I have to agree that your contributions were by far the most valuable. I suppose for those watching tonight, particularly young people who are considering apprenticeships, to hear the practicalities of it from both of yourselves, and the fact that I suppose apprenticeships were dismissed for you when you brought them up in school, so people know that it's not just them that it's happening to, and for us to see the opportunities that apprenticeships can open up. I suppose we'd just like to say to people at the end of this, you know, trade unions, the trades councils and the One Movement are operating in your communities all the time. I know because of COVID, we're working more so behind closed doors or behind screens, but we're nevertheless there for working people. And the trade union movement's strength lies in our density. So we would encourage all of you to be a member of a trade union throughout your working life. And particularly, I suppose, as young people and in apprenticeships, because I suppose young people maybe see trade union membership as something they'll do down the line, that they put in a box with maybe contributing to a pension or a mortgage or something. But young people are probably the most vulnerable cohort of workers, or one of the most vulnerable. So it's very important to be a member of a trade union and to engage with the One Movement and your local trades councils and keep up to date with us. We're on social media, so just to keep up to date with various events we're holding. And as Barry has said, if you are considering an apprenticeship, the trade union movement are here for you. Our door is always open, or at the moment our phone is always on. We're always here for you, so we very much encourage you. We want to be there for workers in any capacity that we can be. And I suppose a particular thank you to Fiona Dunn, who organised this webinar and has done a fantastic job of leading the One Movement and the trades councils across the country over the last number of years. So thank you to Fiona for that, and for everyone who contributed to this webinar, especially to our panelists and to all of you who gave up time this evening to tune into this. And we hope that you will turn to the trade union movement and see your membership as an important part of your life going forward. So thanks very much to everyone for your time, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you, Teresa, and well done. Very well chaired, by the way. Very well chaired. Thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
very
Barbie.
much.
Bye, Aiden.
Thanks again, everyone.
Bye, Fiona.